Please just give me one more minute while I stream to YouTube. Okay, so that's done. Looking at the program, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, is 6:55 local in Nigeria, 5:55. Actually, it's not. It's 5:56. Sorry, 6:55, 5:56 in the UK. Our chairperson board of trustees of CASME is here. Our guest speaker is already here. Members of the board were here. So in another 3 minutes, I'm going to call this 2026 Denis Chisman Memorial Lecture to order. I will immediately invite the chairperson, Lady Dr. Sudil Tonicliffe, to give us our welcome remarks, and then we have the lecture. That's the main thing we're here for. We expect that the program will run till 8:10. That's 7:10 p.m. at the UK end. The information that I have is that our chair, Professor Susan Tonicliffe, has a big event happening this evening. She's going to enjoy herself. Says, I think there's a dinner. Lady Sue. Yeah, so here we have the who is who from the Commonwealth in attending. I'm not able to see other members of the BOT of CASME here, which is, I'm sure they will join. I'm sure they will join. But we have the dignitaries from all over, from Ghana, Sierra Leone, Nigeria. Yeah, okay. Visit Tony, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay. And the president of the Nigerian Association of AI Practitioners, several dignitaries from all our institutions, especially those Jibrin Jai, Sierra Leone. There are quite a lot of from Sierra Leone. I've seen two from the Gambia, and so we're good. So let me call this lecture to order. It's an annual lecture that is organized in memory of one giant in STEM education, Denis Chisman. I will not take any time other than what I've just done, knock the gavel and call it to order. I have the pleasure of welcoming Lady Dr. Sudil Tonicliffe, who chairs the Board of Trustees of CASME, the Commonwealth Association of Science, Technology, and Maths Educators, to welcome us. Dr. Sue, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Peter. Can you hear me?
Loud and very clear.
Thank you.
Loud and clear.
Well, welcome everybody to this biennial Chisman Memorial Lecture, and we hold it always in Commonwealth Week. Yesterday was Commonwealth Day, as you will all know, and I was privileged to attend the service in Westminster Abbey and then the reception at St James's Palace with the King and Queen. I even had a word with the Queen and told her about CASME briefly, but I don't suppose she remembered, as everybody was trying to talk to her. But we are very much Commonwealth orientated, and that's why so many of our activities are on Zoom or another means of communication, so we can involve Commonwealth people. In the old days, as it were, it was very much centred on people in the UK having meetings and then telling the rest of the Commonwealth things, which is not how it is now. So in the over half the century that I have been involved in um, teaching in various forms and places, I've experienced two important paradigm changes in the focus of science education. And it's interesting to reflect when you've been around so long. When I first met Denis Chisman at the United Kingdom Science Education Conference, and he, I don't know how it happened, but involved me in CASME, things were very different, and it was very focused on secondary science teaching and disseminating words of wisdom to everybody else. That was in the 70s, and there was then a shift in which I was actually very involved. I started teaching advanced level zoology, but was always interested in where did the pupils that I had learn what they brought to the lessons. Some of you will remember the work of Professor Rosalind Driver on the pupil as scientist, and that's really what I was thinking about. And her book and her words and her work in the 70s encouraged this change to recognise primary science. And I was charged by Denis and his colleagues to start looking at primary science and trying to introduce it across the Commonwealth. So that was the first shift, and now it's very much part of the curricula for science of countries. But the next thing that happened was that, first of all, we started recognizing that science wasn't pure science with nothing else. You don't do science without using aspects of mathematics, not all of maths, but some aspects of mathematics and engineering. And suddenly, in the present time, educators are beginning to publish papers on particularly practicing teachers, we use some maths in our science investigation. And you think, yeah, well, we've all been doing that for years, but now people are actually talking about it. More recently, in the sort of early years of the present century, people began recognizing early years, and UNESCO define early years as from 0 to 8 years of age. And I started thinking, well, how do the littlest children, the 0 to 3s, learn about science and maths and engineering and technology using tools? So I've been looking at that. And there is very little research on the 0 to 3-year-olds, but we are trying to write a book at the moment about it. And also, we recognize we talk about STEM now, science, engineering, technology, and mathematics, but we recognize that language is the glue, if you like, that keeps everything together. You don't learn without language. So that's very important to recognize. And the other important thing that I've learned, having taught children from many different cultures, is the cultural influence on our learning. You can't go in like a missionary with your version of what happens in your country and tell everybody else that's how to do it. You have to be alert to the cultural influences of the children and where they live. So those are the paradigm shifts that I've seen. And I wonder what Denis Chisman would have made of it all. He would have accepted it. He was a very far-sighted individual. He was actually a chemistry graduate from King's College London, which is one of my alma maters. And we're very proud to keep his memory going because he was quite inspirational. He also co-founded the International Council of Associations of Science Education, where he asked me to start the primary science for that as well. So it is really, really exciting to be able to listen to Professor Uchina today and hear what she says about early years. in Nigeria, which is often a very neglected part of what we hear about. So I hope you all learn and enjoy the presentation in memory of Denis Chisman.
Thank you very much. Our chair of the Board of Trustees, CASME, Sue Dale Tonicliffe, Lady Sue Dale Tonicliffe. We move on now to the next item, which is the man, Denis Chisman. To speak of Denis G. Chisman is to speak of a man whose life was not merely lived, but purposefully invested in the enduring enterprise of science, technology, and maths education across the vast, diverse, and magnificent tapestry of the Commonwealth of Nations. He was, in the truest sense of the phrase, a man ahead of his time, a visionary who understood long before the phrase became fashionable that quality STEM education is not a luxury, but the privileged few, but a birthright of every child in every nation, in every circumstance. Denis Chisman came to the world of international education not as a bystander, but as a builder. He was not content to observe the deficits in science and maths education in the developing world from a comfortable distance. He rolled up his sleeves, engaged with educators on the ground, listened to the realities of classrooms from Lagos to Lusaka, from Bridgetown to Bangalore, and from those encounters, he forged a dream that would crystallize in 1974 into one of the Commonwealth's most enduring educational organizations. Denis Chisman wore many mantles in his distinguished career. He served with distinction as the Executive Secretary of the International Council of Association for Science Education, ICASE, headquartered in Sunbury-on-Thames, United Kingdom, a role through which he wielded enormous influence on the direction of global science education policy. In that capacity, he was not merely an administrator, he was an advocate, a mobilizer, and an intellectual force who understood that the future prosperity of nations rested squarely on the quality of science and maths instruction in their classrooms. He was also a scholar of considerable depth. His 1984 paper, Science Education and National Development, published in the prestigious journal Science Education, made the bold and consequential argument that the teaching and learning of science must be understood not merely as an academic exercise, but as a driver of national transformation. His 1987 book, Practical Secondary Education, Planning for Cost Effectiveness in Less Developed Countries, demonstrated that he understood the hard economics of education policy, that good intentions must be matched by practical, sustainable frameworks if genuine transformation is to occur. These were not armchair reflections. They were the distillation of fieldwork, of encounter with real schools and real learners, of a man who went where the problems were and asked the difficult questions that others preferred to leave unasked. Defining vision, CASB, 1974. The crowning achievement of Denis Chisman's life was, without question, the founding of the Commonwealth Association of Science, Technology, and Mass Educators, CASME, in 1974. But look, if you look at this picture, that was in 1973, the first ICASE World Conference. I was at this conference. The two people that received at the extremes are the Oyewole brothers that are known for their chemistry and their physics. At the time when the decolonization of Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean was still fresh, when the education systems of nearly independent nations were struggling to find their footing, when the inherited curricula of colonialism sat uneasily in classrooms designed for a different world, Denis Chisman recognized that what was needed was not charity from the North, but solidarity across the Commonwealth. Cast me that our chair of today, Professor Lady Sue Thornycliffe, from its inception was built on a radical premise. The STEM education must be taught in a social and locally relevant context, and that access to such learning must be universally available. This was not merely a policy statement, it was a philosophy, one that changed the Eurocentric assumptions embedded in most science curricula of the era and insisted that the science of the soil, the mathematics of the market, the technology of the community had equal dignity and equal instructional value. Today's memorial lecture, From Wonder to Why, Building the Foundations of Science in the Early Years, could not be more fitting a tribute to Denis Chisman. For at the very heart of his educational philosophy lay a conviction that is only now receiving the full scientific and pedagogical attention it deserves, and that our chair of today, Lady Sue, had been championing forever and a day. That the seeds of scientific thinking are sown not in secondary school laboratories, not in university lecture theaters, but in the earliest, most tender encounters of a child with the natural world. Lady Chisman understood with rare clarity that wonder precedes method. Before a child can formulate a hypothesis, he or she must first be captivated by a question. Before she can design an experiment, she must first have been allowed to touch, to smell, to taste, listen to, and be puzzled by the world around him or her. Denis Chisman believed that the role of the educator, and indeed of every caring adult in the early years of the child's life, was to protect and nurture that natural disposition towards inquiry, rather than to rush past in the pursuit of syllabus coverage. This was not mere sentiment. It was a principled, research-informed position. As IK's Executive Secretary, Chisman engaged deeply with the growing body of evidence emerging from the developmental psychology, cognitive science, and classroom research that demonstrated that young children are, in the most literal sense, natural scientists. They observe, they categorize, they test, they revise their understanding, they ask endless and with magnificent persistence, why? A legacy that endures. Those of us who had the privilege of working alongside Denis Chisman, it was several of the IK's meetings, and he came to Nigeria a couple of times. Our speaker for today knows him. Those of us who had the privilege of working alongside his Chisman, of sitting in meetings with him, of debating ideas and hammering out policies in the complex arena of Commonwealth educational development, carry with us a sense of debt that cannot be fully repaid, but only honored. He modeled for us what it means to combine intellectual rigor with human warmth, intellectual ambition with personal humility, and global vision with grassroots commitment. He reminded us in word and in deed that education is not merely a profession, it is a vocation, and that the highest expression of that vocation is to serve faithfully and imaginatively those children who are the least and who stand to gain the most. He reminded us we honor him today, not merely because he's gone, but because what he built remains. A life purposeful and more necessary than ever. Denis Chisman, your vision marches on. Thank you. That will be, you can see light is gone in my environment here. We now move on to the heart of the matter. That is the lecture. Yeah, my pleasure to invite Professor Uchenna, Maristella, and Zewi to give us the 2026 Denis Chisman lecture. Professor Zewi, the floor is all yours. Professor Zewi, the floor is yours. Okay, yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. I need to be allowed to share my
screen. Oh, yeah, carry on, that's done now.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to present this brief lecture titled From Wonder to Why, Building. Please excuse me, I don't know what happened here. Okay, I've got it. From Wonder to Why, Building the Foundation for Early Science Years in Science Education. So on that page, you see the outline. I'll briefly look at all those things listed there. So I'll start with the introduction. The natural curiosity, which is the wonder of young children, is a good foundation for science learning. Early science education should know this wonder through inquiry, to building critical skills through play, exploration, and structured questioning. So how will educators move children from wonder to why? That is how we use their awe and curiosity to structured inquiry and reasoning. And this is how we get to build lifelong scientific literacy. So the early years normally starts from the preschool years. As early as 0, we throw children into schools. And in some of these schools, we see them struggling with what they should not struggle with. They give them assignments, they ask them all kinds of things, instead of allowing them to develop naturally. Their development characteristics, usually when they are between ages of 3 and 8, which is when they're in pre-primary school or lower primary, should actually be exploratory. But what do we see? We see people, some of their teachers trying to get them to sit down and cram and learn and what have you. So science education in the early years is supposed to be exploration of environments, everyday observation, experimenting with everyday things, asking questions based on observations. And this is where the difference between formal science and exploratory science lies. Early science is supposed to be exploratory science, where the teacher or the guide goes along with what the child is interested in. No formal curriculum of saying, today we are studying colors, tomorrow we are studying animals, and the next day we are studying birds, which unfortunately, it's what happens in most schools that call themselves nursery schools that we have now, because nobody appears to be regulating them. So why is science important in the early years? Science is important in the early years because it helps children to develop critical thinking skills. We've talked about observation, prediction, classification, and several others. It enhances their language and communication skills. Their natural curiosity will lead to vocabulary expansion through scientific discussions, because when they ask questions and you answer them, you are increasing their vocabulary. It also leads to problem-solving skills, because they will hypothesize, they will test, and what have you. Some children have gone to When you give them a meal that they enjoy, they'll say, oh, I want to plant this meal so that it will germinate and next time I will eat it. You give them something like peanuts roasted. They say, oh, let me plant it so that when it germinates, it will be. So you let them plant it. And after 2 days, when it's time to open, they open it up and they will see that it is rotten instead of growing. You can take it up from there. It also builds their attitude. They form their attitude towards science. It is at this level that long-term interest in STEM is built at these early years when they are allowed to explore and when the teacher or whoever is their guide becomes an explorer with them. So the theoretical foundations on which early science is based are mostly three that I like to talk about. The constructivism theory, which is learning through interaction with environment, where you allow children to construct their knowledge through exploration. This idea is based on Jean Piaget's theory. And then we have the Lev Vygotsky sociocultural theory, where learning occurs through social interaction and guidance. And of course, emphasis on language and culture. In Nigerian classrooms, based that's the Vygotsky theory. And then the Jerome Bruner discovery learning theory, where children learn by exploration and discovery, especially if those children are encouraged to ask questions and investigate, because they will want to know why. The question on their lips at every time is why. And if the teacher encourages them to, okay, let us find out. When they ask that why question and you don't give them the answer, you are helping them to find out. That is discovery learning. So what role does wonder play in early childhood science? Number one is the use of the children's innate curiosity to explore, ask questions, and experiment. Wonder also acts as a motivation. When children are fascinated by anything, it will drive them. They will become engaged. When you give them something that is of interest to them, or you allow them to go to something that's of interest to them, you will see that they will never be tired of asking you questions. Everyday phenomena, examples of everyday phenomena, rainbows, shadows, how plants grow. These are all entry points for science learning. Children will plant a corn in a cup today, and the next day they will go to uproot it to watch whether it's growing. You allow them to do that by planting one and keeping the one you have planted. Don't touch this. This is my own. Let's be doing your own. Some others will plant every 2 days. They'll go and uproot and say, oh, the root is coming up. And so on and so forth until they kill their own. And then they see that yours is still growing. They get interested. They ask questions. And by giving them real answers, they get more interested, they get curious, and you are motivating them to go on. So when you want to now transit them from wonder to why, at the point they are leaving that pre-primary schools, they are getting into upper primary and what have you. You are moving from spontaneous curiosity to guided questioning. Here you are looking at inquiry. And then you can do some scaffolding where the teacher, you as a teacher or guide, can now model questions and encourage deeper thinking, open-ended questioning techniques. Children can ask questions. They can ask questions. Unfortunately, when they ask too many questions, we tend to shut them up. But we should not, because all they're doing is to develop their skills. They will use vocabularies to articulate their observations and their hypotheses. When they don't use the correct one, you correct them. At that early stage, use vocabularies that they can understand. You are helping them to develop language. And of course, we cannot run away from the play-based inquiry. Everything they do, you should convert into play at the early stages. Don't let them think that they are doing serious work. I once conducted a study on children's conception of play activities. And I found out that these little children, any activity they do with their mothers, they regard as play. But the ones they do with fathers, washing cars, helping to fix this or running this errand or that or that, they say it is work. When I inquired further, they said that it's serious work because daddies don't have time to play. When you ask them questions, you say, my friend, this is how it is done. But mothers will explain, giving them more time to learn and to develop their own language. Other approaches, hands-on experiences. They will experiment. We allow them to do nature work. I don't know whether they do it now, but I remember then, you will see little children in nursery schools. Their teacher will take them out. And as they're walking, they're looking at plants. They're observing, collecting little tiny flowers. They are smelling those flowers. They're exploring their senses. They are looking at, they'll collect, and when they come in, they'll start sorting them. These are all hands-on experiences that build up early science learning. And then we have storytelling and dialogue. You use narratives to connect their wonder with scientific reasoning. They want to know, why is this happening? Why did the other one not happen? What not happen? Everything is why. When you use narratives, you connect them, they will know what you are talking about. And then integration with other subjects. Even if it is in their English books, there are some scientific topics that are there, which you can bring up, allow them to look at. Nature and environmental exploration, I've mentioned it as part of the nature walk. They have school gardens, observing weather patterns. This period that is so hot, they'll be asking questions. In fact, I've had children ask me a lot of questions. Grandma, why is this period so hot? Why is everybody sweating? Why is everybody fanning? These are all activities that you try to explain and they will get to know about what is happening. And of course, you can use simple experiments. There are safe hands-on classroom activities that children can perform. I have not forgotten the water and paper activity. That was my very first experiment in science. A teacher will get a cup of water, put a paper on top of it and turn it upside down, and the water will not pour away. He did that idea. That experiment has not left my head. And the children will now ask, why is it so? At that early stage, they will think it's magic, but as they grow, they will understand the idea of pressure and what have you. So what is the role of the teacher in this early science? The teacher should be a facilitator rather than an information giver. That's the basic one. Facilitator, whatever they are doing, you facilitate, bring out the ideas from them, the ones they can. Encourage questioning, creating stimulating learning environments will be very, very useful. Then assessing through observations and portfolios. Not this one, they give them a 10-page assignment and they start writing. Sometimes children will come, Grandma, come and help us. The teacher gave us assignments. They are midterm break, and the teacher will give them an assignment that will take their whole weekend. You'll be wondering what is the essence of that midterm break that they had. Some others will now give them an assignment that will involve building portfolios. Say, gather, when you're coming to school, bring 3 flowers with 3 different colors. They We will allow them to observe before they can collect, or pick up stones from your compound, if possible, different shapes and different colors. You just say different types of stones. When they come, the way you now go into that, you are teaching them shapes, you're teaching them colors, without calling it, giving it that head in colors. You're mixing everything. So observation.
You have 5 more
very
minutes, madam. 5 more minutes. Professor Ochenza.
okay.
You have
That's
5
all right.
minutes.
Okay. So what are the challenges in building early science education? The first one is balancing structure and freedom. We must avoid over-formalization. Teacher preparedness. Teacher educators need to be trained to foster curiosity and inquiry. Is a challenge. Then there's the challenge of resource limitations. We don't have access to materials, environments that support and what we are doing, and this includes large class size. In that stage, at that level, children are not supposed to be more than 10, 20 in a class, but you see them 40, 45. And then we have the cultural aspects. There are topics that are considered as taboo. A child dare not ask some questions. Sometimes when they ask questions that relate to reproductive organ, you shut them up, and then you give them funny names for their reproductive organs. This also has implication for their being harassed sexually and what have you, even though people are now trying to change the narrative. So what can we do to build foundation for lifelong learning? We need to develop critical thinking skills, confidence and resilience, equity in science education, ensuring all children have access to wonder-filled learning opportunities. And the long-term impacts will be that children will early in life form positive attitude towards the STEM field. So what strategies can we use to improve this situation? Good teacher training and professional development. We must integrate science in the early childhood development curriculum that we use in our schools. Use of low-cost materials or local materials, improvisation, and what have you. Parental and community involvement. Policy support. Okay, use of improvised and local materials. When Professor Kebukala was talking about Chisman, he talked about mothers' involvement in science. That is very, very important. But we prefer to call it parental, not just mothers, because fathers should also be involved. So in conclusion, you see that curiosity is the foundation of scientific thinking. Early inquiry nurtures lifelong learning. Building wonder to why is essential because it's from wonder that you go to inquiry, and that ends in lifelong learning. You nurture curiosity as the foundation for lifelong learning, and you invest in science education. So in conclusion, our educational practitioners need to strengthen ECDE policy implementation, provide science learning resources, encourage active exploratory teaching methods. So our call to action is to nurture curiosity, support teachers, and enrich classrooms. When we do that, we'll see that we'll be on the road to getting it right. So thank you very much for listening. It has been my pleasure sharing this evening with you. Thank you.
Congratulations to our 2026 Chisman lecturer, Professor Uchenna Nzewi. We're not expecting anything less. You've done us proud. Very, very wonderful lecture. It's from wonder. So you give us wonderment in the wonder lecture. Thank you so very much. We're now moving on to discussants. Two people will discuss 5 minutes each this lecture, after which we'll open the floor. We have voices from the audience. We're going to start from Nigeria, and Professor Tony Kola will take the floor, visit Tony, and then we'll go to Sierra Leone, will be the Gambia, will be everywhere. I can see Lynn Simmons in the room. I'm so delighted. Lynn Mary Simmons, what a delight to see you. We're going to ask you to make some comment or give us some remarks. Everybody who's going to be intervening, maximum 1 minute each. My pleasure to invite Professor Yinka Ogunlade, one of the discussants. You have the floor, man, for 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Peter Okebukola. You will all agree with me that this year's Denis Chisman Memorial Lecture is a unique one in all its ramifications, with our professor, who is also a giant in early years STEM education. Whoever the cap fits, let him or her wear it. So I'm so excited that she has taken us through all the rudiments of from wonder to why, and building the foundation for early years in science education. She has told us a lot of things that we need to know, and concluded by giving us the strategies for improvement, which is very, very vital. So the ball is in our court to look at all these things critically and see how we can meander through the challenges in building early science education. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, our wonderful Professor Yinka Ogunlade. Now remains for me to provide, just give me a minute, to provide my reflections on the talk, on the lecture. 1 minute. The chairperson, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Professor Nzewi has given us a gift this evening, not merely a lecture, but an invitation to revisit one of the most consequential questions in the whole enterprise of education. What do we do with the wonder of the child? Let me begin with what I think we must, with affirmation. The lecturer's central thesis is both elegant and urgent, that the natural curiosity of the young child is not a distraction to be managed, but the very raw material from which scientific thinking is forged. This is a principle that research in cognitive and developmental psychology has consistently validated, and it is one that African education systems have, to our collective shame, too often suppressed rather than cultivated. I'm particularly struck by the lecturer's framing of the teacher as facilitator rather than information giver. In my many years engaging with university and pre-university science education across Nigeria and Africa, I've observed that the transmission model, teacher talks, child absorbs, is perhaps the single greatest extinguisher of scientific curiosity we have. Professor Nzewi's call for a shift towards inquiry-based, play-driven exploration at the foundational stage is not idealism. It is developmental science applied to pedagogy. First, on the question of Nigerian context, the lecturer rightly flags the overemphasis on literacy and numeracy skills as a structural distortion in our ECCDE programs. ECCD is early child care development and education. I will push this observation further. The problem is not merely curricular, it is philosophical. Nigerian early childhood education has inherited a colonial epistemology that treated African children's ways of knowing, their oral traditions, their observation of nature, their indigenous science as deficits to be remedied, not assets to be mobilized. Second, the lecture identifies teacher unpreparedness as a key challenge. And I cannot overstate how important this is. We cannot ask teachers to facilitate wonder if they themselves have had the wonder trained out of them by rote learning teacher education programs. Professional development for ECCD teachers must not only teach techniques, it must rekindle the teacher's own scientific curiosity. The model that Professor Nzewi describes, scaffolding, open-ended questioning, play-based inquiry, demands teachers who are themselves comfortable with uncertainty and open-ended questions. The third one is on equity. Well, the Chisman lecture exists precisely to stimulate this kind of serious conversation about the foundations of our educational enterprise. Professor Nzewi has honored that tradition admirably. The Wonder to Why framework is a contribution that deserves to move from the lecture hall into our curriculum offices, our teacher training institutions, and ultimately into the hands of the early childhood educators, who are, in the truest sense, the architects of Nigeria's scientific future, indeed, Africa's scientific future. My call to all of us here, let us leave this Zoom hall determined to be advocates throughout the Commonwealth in our institutions, our professional associations, and our policy engagements for an early science education that trusts the child's curiosity, equips the teacher's imagination, and refuses to accept
You have a minute to
that
round up.
wonder. Yes, it's a luxury only when some Nigerian children can afford. I congratulate Professor Nzewi on a stimulating and timely lecture, and I thank you all. Professor Tony, I think I did well for time. You said I have a minute more. I only did 20 seconds more after that. Oh, yes. You can take that one. I give you that one. I donate that one to you, Tony.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yes. Now we're going to open the floor for to hear voices from across the Commonwealth. And I'm going to begin from you, Tony, and you have 1 minute. I'll be timing you too now. Tony, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. And
no, I'm not chairman. Chairman is there. Okay.
Yes, I'd like to congratulate Professor Nzewi for a very stimulating lecture. She has, in her paper, she has proven that by strengthening science learning in the early years, I'm going to speak specifically to Nigeria. Nigeria can cultivate a generation of new breed of thinkers, innovators, problem solvers who are capable of addressing national challenges in the area of health, agriculture, sustainable development, and technology. It means that investing in early science education, therefore, is not merely about teaching facts. It's about awakening curiosity. And Professor Nzewi has been able to tell us that Nigeria needs to build a new crop of nation builders. And this can be done through science learning from the early years. Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Anthony Nicola Olusoya, VC Tony. Let me try Sierra Leone. Mohammed Hakim Sanko, the floor is yours. And then Dr. Stella Fu from Ghana, you also make a 1 minute intervention.
So, good evening. Thank you so much, Professor. And thank you for the presentation. And in Sierra Leone, the early childhood and early learning of science has been involved in the early childhood education, which has actually introduced into universities and colleges. And then governments has thought it fit that schools in the public schools should have early childhood center and all over the country in district in Sierra Leone. So that is presently what is going on, the early child learning in schools and then the public university and private university and colleges, so that they train teachers and then they could be able to do it into the school. That is presently what is going on with the country.
Thank you, Sierra Leone. Over to Ghana, Dr. Stella Fo. Omar D.
Yes.
Kamara, I'm sure that maybe you're breaking the fast, but if you are active, I would like you to speak from the Gambia. Yes, Ghana.
Yes, I thank you very much, and thank you to our speaker for that presentation. In Ghana, early childhood education is one of topmost importance to the government, and you can see that across in both the private and public sectors, where there are so many of early childhood institutions to ensure that children of every background get the opportunity to enroll in such institutions to build a foundation towards the university system. The only challenge is that the conditions across these institutions are not the same, whereas in rural areas, there are lack of resources to facilitate the curiosity and build the capabilities of these children. In the urban areas, such resources are available. And so there are various grades as far as early childhood education is concerned. But I think that with all these new strategies that we are receiving through such presentations, we'll be able to build something better for our children. Thank you very much, sir.
Wonderful. That's good. Ghana, we have from Ghana, Sierra Leone. The Gambia, wondering if you are available to take the floor. Else, I'll be calling on, let's see, Lynn Simmons. Lynn, you may wish to speak to us and reflect on the topic. I will also ask Kathleen to speak leaders in Casby. Lynn Simmons, are you there?
Yes, I'm Lynn Simons. I did chair CASME for a number of years, and
your voice can project more. Lynn, we cannot hear you well, or I cannot hear you well.
Sorry,
Can you?
I haven't got a better microphone. I'm troubling.
Go ahead then,
Right.
Lynn.
What I want to say is what you've said so far tonight applies to any age of science teaching and learning. Absolutely everything you said, from wonder to why, routes to improving interest and application in science, apply all stages. So well done for bringing this out into the open for children in early learning. And the professor told us that the wonder has been trained out of children by their teachers. The wonder has been trained out of children by their teachers. That is a sin. And it's one of the things we should all be fighting against. And I was always involved in higher education, and it was a sin the way science education was taught at that level. The wonder had been taken away. I'm currently actually, maybe interestingly, working in north of Ghana with some science and maths educators to try and improve that education in very difficult circumstances. But those words that I've just repeated to you tonight are the meat of what we're all trying to do, to get wonder back into science education so that children enjoy and want to learn more. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so very much. Now, Esther Okeko, the baby is going there, so you are vantagely positioned to comment on early years. Dr. Esther Okeko, take the floor. And then Chidima Ugu, Associate Professor Chidima Ugu, I'm going to be calling on you next. Yes, Esther Okeko.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
You can see the early years. Baby is talking there. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I really enjoyed the lecture from wonder to why, talking about curiosity in early child, and I really enjoyed it too. Thank you very much, sir.
Your baby enjoyed it too. Very good, yes.
Yes, I was listening to the lecture together.
Wonderful. Dr. Chidima Ugu.
Okay. Thank you very much for the privilege. I really appreciate our mommy. She's my mentor. She trained me all the while, so I'm not even surprised in what she was able to do. I really enjoyed the lecture from her. And it has also helped us to also understand that in our pursuit of training children, we should also allow them, give them opportunities to be able to explore very well, right from the early age, like right from when they are still little, and discourage so much of rote learning in them. They give them a lot of cramming works, and it's not really helping. So with this lecture, I pray that it will help facilitate learning and understanding, that they must always give them the opportunity to be curious about science, and it will help improve our STEM education in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. I say Professor Chidima Ugu.
I am Dr. Mrs.
Sit down there. We don't give you the as a professor, my friend. Now, Professor Uchennaze, we talked about what Chisman said about mothers, and that is parents. So fathers and mothers. We have a great grandfather here, Professor Itokwe Ogunbodede. I'm going to be asking him in a minute to give us his reflections. Now, let me ask Ogenekewe Bosu, who is a great undergraduate of Lagos State University. Are you in ICT education or biology education?
Biology education, sir.
Okay, take the floor.
Okay, sir. So what I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to listen to Professor speak. What really stood out for me is the part where she said we should not silence the curiosity of children. In Nigeria, it's a very common thing for people to tell children, keep quiet, don't ask this question, don't say this, don't say that. But I really learned the importance of allowing children to speak, allowing children to share what they've observed and what they've learned so far.
Thank you so much. Let's complete this cycle by asking Professor Itokwe Ogunbodede, former Vice Chancellor of one of our leading universities, first generation universities, a great medical scientist, and the president of the National Association of AI Practitioners. I wanted to ask Kathleen to come on to speak, but apparently I didn't get her microphone to be unmuted. So we're going to conclude with Professor Itokwe Ogunbodede. Okay, Kathleen has her hand up. Up, Kathleen, take the floor, please. Kathleen, the floor is yours. When you are ready, we'll come back to you. Now, let's go to Professor Itokwe Ogunbodede.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to join others to congratulate Professor Uchennaze for the very beautiful lecture, and also the response that you gave, and also that of Professor Ogunlade. In our opening remark, Lady Sultanicliff actually said that language is the glue that keeps education together. And one of the core issues in Nigeria currently is the appropriate language for early childhood education. Should it be our local languages or should it be English? And that controversy is still raging currently. And I want to believe that our cultural language has a role to play. And I want to see what this association can do to actually impress it on the Nigerian government, that we really don't need to jettison our local language in early childhood education. I think that's one angle that I want us to explore. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much. I queue behind you on that area of your intervention about language, especially in the early years. So we'll take that up at the appropriate level. Thank you, sir. Kathleen, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much for just a wonderful evening, so inspirational. And the message is most certainly that we must nurture curiosity, not see it as a distraction. But what I would say, I've had the privilege of many years of working alongside Lady Sue with young teachers, with teachers on workshops, and teachers say to us that they want to nurture the curiosity of the children. They want to use hands-on learning. The problem is that they are the teachers are told, no, you have to test the children. The focus in UK is on testing, not on nurturing. And this is the message that we must take back.
Absolutely. Kathleen, thank you for all you're doing for CASME, for science, technology, and mass education in the Commonwealth, and especially for the early years. We have a giant in the room. There are several giants in the room. For the British Council in the UK, Dr. Rita Odumosu. Dr. Rita Odumosu would like you to take the last 1 minute of this session, of this agenda item to reflect with us. Dr. Rita Odumosu. All right. If she's not active, she's in the room, I can see. Okay, we're closing this segment.
Sorry, I thought I was muted. I'm here now. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much, both to yourself, Dr. Peter, Professor Uchenna Nzewi. Thank you. That was so practical and very, very relevant to our needs today. I work as an education consultant, and I found that since the lockdown, since COVID, we've had a death of creativity in children. I think that lockdown experience obviously had a knockdown effect, both on the language that the previous speaker was talking about. You know, the speech has reduced a lot. So it was really good to hear what you have to say and all the little things that we can do to nurture and encourage curiosity and so on. That was fantastic. There's just a very quick resource I want to make you aware of, which a school that I work with and I support have been using, and which has made a big, big difference on our well-being and creativity and inclusive practice in the school. It's a resource called Opal Play, OPAL. I will put the details in the chat. And basically, it's outdoor equipment tailored, and it's not very expensive. It's as cheap as local garages giving us their used tires to play with, but it's parents donating cardboard and various things that, you know, it's useful for play. And what it is we have a playtime, an hour of play with all the children using this equipment, and they have really found great benefits in its use, both for scientific learning. They do experiments. There's a sand area. There is climbing equipment, and they're able to incorporate STEM, well-being, working together, and just being able to express and learn from each other. It's amazing. And I think against the backdrop of Professor's lecture tonight, it would work really well. And it's a program that can be tailored to each school's needs. So you don't have to spend thousands of money. It's just about using your resources, getting a local carpenter to build some equipment, and the children can use for this outdoor play. So I'll put the details on the website, and you can have a look. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Rita Odumosu. I can see Professor
Rita, not doctor.
Oyegegu in, well, I'm giving you that one tonight. Dr. Kadi Oyegegu. These are Professor Oyegegu, Uchenna, you don't draw all the professors. All the professors in UNN, they're all here. All our old.
Naturally.
Naturally, yes.
Naturally.
All right, so that's quite good. If you look at where we are, voice from the audience, that will tidy that up, and then we're at the closure of the lecture by the chairperson of CASME. I'm going to invite, you can see we've done so well for time. We were to close at 8:10, now it's just 8 o'clock. To invite Professor Sudil Thornycliffe to close the 2026 Denis Chisman Memorial Lecture. Over to you, Lady Sue.
Thank you, Professor. I'm tempted to say, brilliant. So what? What are we going to do to keep this impetus going forward? I mean, the idea of telling people that we turn play into structured exploration, which is what all my research is saying, is lost on the policymakers, the people who write the curricula, the people who write the textbooks. I think humans like to be in power and tell people things. And emphasising the use of narratives. I mean, some of you will know I've done a lot of work on using narratives with Professor Bruguière from Lyon and ICERA. It's vital because that's what learning is all about. It's a narrative. And the teacher, to change it to a facilitator, not an instructor, is quite an uphill battle, I've found over the years. It's some people just like to have that feeling of power so they can control the children, and they feel threatened when the children ask questions. So, as Professor Okebukola said, we have to bring equity into early science for everybody. We have to recognise the parents, the culture, the community are the key people in helping children to learn science in the everyday and then apply it to the academic studies they have to do. And the comments people made about the different resources are so relevant, but how do we get the politicians to understand? All they seem to want is test results so they can vie with each other in the PISA results. It's very heartening to hear that early years is being more and more accepted. And I would add that the 0 to 3s are crucial in all this. And that's with the families and the communities. And we have to celebrate their role in helping the children. Children are little primates, they're little animals, and they're born with this instinctive curiosity. And if they are curious and interested, they will explore and investigate and learn skills, which we in the International Research Group, we talk about the STEM E, the E being for the early experiences where they develop the basic skills. So it's absolutely amazing what we've heard and from all of the people attending with their comments. But what are we going to do next to keep this going? I think that is a challenge for you all. It's a challenge for us in CASTME, and we need people to help and take this movement forward. So I look to Professor Okebukola, who's one of our vice chairmen. And we need to put this on the Commonwealth website. And if you'll send me the link, I'll send it tomorrow to the Commonwealth Secretariat, who, as many of you may know, have dismantled the health unit and the education unit at the Secretariat. And their answer to that is that we, the accredited organisations, have to deliver, in our case, the education in STEM.
Thank you very much, our chair of CASTME Board of Trustees and the chair of this lecture. Thank you, the wonderful guest speaker, Professor Uchenna, Maristella, and Zewi. Thank you, one and all. Before I go, Denis Chisman was a great chemist. And I'd like us to remember, although we are celebrating it, I'd like us to remember that old chemists never die. They just fail to react.
Wow.
So take care.